and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shore.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. So those guys out there probably saying, you know, what's going on? What's going on? With this is VCV event or not? So this is a combined. This is this event, which is actually done by Gamma Eta Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and VCV is actually sponsoring this event for Wreath across America. But before we start explaining why we're here, we got to get to my intro. So here we are again today. It's Friday, you know, it's time for everybody to get off. It's like the 16th of December. But one of the things I want to broadcast to you is that we're having an event called Wreath Across America Ceremony, which is going to dedicate it to the African-American veterans who served and died during segregation. And what people don't realize is back then, they were not allowed, they were segregated, and they didn't get a lot of these cemeteries. Were very small. They didn't have a marker, and we thought there was something to do about that. But I'll tell you something first. I wanted you to understand our why. First of all, Veterans Council of Veterans help sponsor an event. We think it's important. It's important that we don't forget the veterans that may have been forgotten back in segregation time, especially when we do Wreath Across America. Wreath Across America is every year, all the veteran organizations, open veteran organizations, they honor Wreath Across America by placing a wreath on the tombstone of a veteran. And this is on 17th, which is Saturday. But what if you didn't have a wreath? What if you didn't have a tombstone? What if you didn't have a tombstone? What if when you came back home during segregation and all the cemeteries were segregated and they just had no room for you? What often happened was that the cemetery would then, if they did have somebody, they would have 4 or 5 people in one hole because of that, and they didn't have any kind of marker. Well, we want to try to change that and find a way to recognize these veterans on Saturday, December 17th, at the DAV chapter. It's a 2-part event. DAV chapter in Brandon, 115 Clay Avenue. The second part, which is a very important part, is going to be at the Memorial Park Cemetery at 11 o'clock. We'll actually join the wreaths of the veterans who have no marker with the veterans who have a wreath. But let me explain my why. Let me show you a way I can explain my why, which is the most important. So listen to this, my why.
Cemeteries and burial grounds in Hillsborough County. USF forensic anthropologists discover an additional 45 unmarked cemeteries in Hillsborough County. This is a part of a 2-year study to find them. 10 Tampa Bay Shannon Clow is at one of the newly discovered sites in Valrico.
5 additional cemeteries discovered, 14 have locations, 31 just have a general vicinity or no location at all. What USF forensic and
the first discovery of erased or unmarked graves. Here's a look at some of hundreds of discoveries that we have covered right around here in the Bay Area. The first was Zion Cemetery in 2019, where archaeologists found nearly 300 graves at Robles Park Village and 2 neighboring businesses. Since then, more than 1,000 graves have been found. There are also reports of lost cemeteries in Odessa and at Tropicana Field.
Now this, you said, and this is not meant to be divisive at all. It's not meant to be divisive at all. This is about making sure we remember the veterans that we may have forgotten back during segregation. Because back then, the Army was segregated, and a lot of the veterans who did die come home to a segregated country, and they went to in the cemeteries. They had, in our case, we're going to be having a ceremony at the Memorial Park Cemetery. They had no markers, they had no space, and so you don't even know who's out there that died and served. This is just us never forgetting, never forgiving, leaving no man behind, leaving no person behind. And that's what we're trying to do at Veterans Council and Gamma Eta Sigma. We're trying to sit there and make sure that we honor and remember these veterans that died and may have been forgotten during segregation. So how are we going to do this? I mean, first of all, I want everybody to know that segregation was real. Segregation was real back then. And the markers you see to the left and right, to the left of you, there's actually a marker that's at the Memorial Park Cemetery. It says Negro. It says Florida Negro World War Veterans Memorial, dedicated in May 30, 1923. 1923, they made it. So that's it. If they can do it in 1923, well, we should be able to do the same thing in 2022. And to the right, where you see there, Black Troop Service Area. What happens if a veteran was assigned to MacDill Air Force Base during that segregation time, they could not live at MacDill. So they had to actually travel to MacDill, work on MacDill, and go back to where they lived, but they were allowed to live. And so this marker here, the Black Troop Service Area, is actually at MacDill, across the street from the PX. So I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that segregation was real, and real is important. Now you say, well, I hear people all the time saying, why we gotta bring race into it? Why we gotta bring race into it? I always hear it all the time. Well, I tell you, back in segregation, it was all about race, right? Back during segregation, they identified you being black. So they were black. They were actually called Negroes back then. Negro cemeteries. Blacks gonna eat here. Blacks gonna eat at the back of the bus. So back then, it was all about race, but not in a good way. So now today, a lot of us who are, and I didn't know, I learned, this is a journey I took. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that because I always grew up. I grew up in the integrated military. My dad was in the military 20 years, and I served in the integrated military, and I served 24 years. So this never really crossed my mind. But there are people back then where they were actually identified by being a race, and then they were forgotten because of that time frame. Some forgotten because of some guilt, some just totally forgotten. They just didn't know. So that's what we're trying to sit there and remember these. We're not trying to be divisive at all. We're just remembering the veterans who may have died during segregation, especially before 1959, and don't have a gravesite. The VA started allowing veterans to be on a VA on a federal in 1940. It was executive order signed in 1948, but we don't really know when the first veteran was born. So that's what we're trying to do. This is what Wreath Across America is going to be. So your next question is like, well, who's going to be there, Tony? Who's going to be at this event that you're having? Well, let me give you a quick example. Who's going to be here? So you see, we're going to have a really good all-star cast. We have from, and I'll introduce him as well. We have the guest speaker, which is Admiral Lawrence Larry Chamber, who's going to give us a context. First African-American actually, second African-American actually graduate the Naval Academy, commander of the carrier. a lot of firsts, and he'll be one of our guest speakers. But as you see, we have Colonel Khalib Tabaz, the highest-ranking Muslim chaplain in the Army. He's now the CENTCON chaplain. And we got the JRTC Blake High School will be there to offer the colors. So this is gonna an all-star cast. You need to be there out there and witness history, because this is history. This is the first time, at least I know. And if you know something different, let me know in the chat. But this is the first time I know where somebody's actually honoring veterans who served during segregation, served and died during segregation, almost the forgotten veterans and stuff. So that's very important to me. Again, December 17th. Starts at 9 o'clock at the DAV 83, 115 West Clay Avenue, Brandon, and then it will end at the Memorial Park Cemetery, 2225 East Martin Luther King Boulevard at the cemetery there, Memorial Cemetery, to do this. So let's talk about I want to give you a glimpse of who is Admiral Chambers, real quick.
Lawrence C. Chambers was born on June 10, 1929, to Charlotte and Lawrence of Bedford, Virginia. He was the third of 5 children. When Larry was very young, his father, a World War I veteran, died. With inspiration from his maternal grandparents, he excelled as a student from elementary to high school, where he was named class valedictorian and commander of the JROTC Cadet Corps. With a passion for aviation and inspiration from another Dunbar alum, Wesley Brown, Larry realized the Naval Academy offered the best technical education his family could afford. At the Academy, Larry played battalion golf, softball, and was on the cross-country team. He was also involved with a brigade radio station and theater production support. The Lucky Bag noted that with his will and determination, he will have little trouble becoming a successful naval officer. Larry was only the second African American to graduate from the Naval Academy. He was also the first African American to hold 8 different command positions. After graduation, he was assigned to the heavy cruiser USS Columbus. He then launched his dream career in naval aviation, earning his wings in 1954 and reporting to his first assignment, Anti-Submarine Squadron 37, flying the Grumman AF Guardian. His next assignment was flying the A-1 Sky Raider with Attack Squadron 215. Following postgraduate school, he transitioned to jet aircraft, flying the A-4 Skyhawk with 2 attack squadrons. He then established Attack Squadron 67 as its first commanding officer and flew the A-7 Corsair II. For 3 years, starting in 1968, Larry flew combat missions over Vietnam from the carrier Ranger and was assigned as air boss on the Oriskany. He was assigned to command the combat stores ship White Plains just after promotion to captain in 1972. The crew was in mediocre operating condition, but Larry guided them to receive the Ney Award for Best Small Ship Mess Afloat and the Type Commander's E. Larry assumed command of the carrier Midway. In April, after the fall of Saigon, his ship supported Operation Frequent Wind, the evacuation of U.S. and South Vietnamese personnel. The flight deck was full of helicopters transporting refugees. Major Bung Lee, an experienced South Vietnamese pilot with his wife and 5 children in a 2-seater aircraft, dropped a note requesting the carrier make room for him to land. In addition to other preparations, Larry ordered a number of helicopters pushed overboard to clear the way for the small aircraft, which then landed safely aboard the Midway to the widespread cheers of the crew. In 1977, he became the first African-American Naval Academy graduate promoted to Rear Admiral. He served as Assistant Chief of Navy Personnel, then commanded Carrier Strike Group 3, and later served as Interim Commander of Carrier Strike Group 4. His final naval assignment was Vice Commander of Naval Air System Command. Larry retired as a Rear Admiral in 1984 after...
So there we go. That's our guest speaker. I tell you, a man of a lot of history. Larry is 93 years old and he's still out there doing it. We just did a run through yesterday and he's still got it going on. So we're going to hear a lot from that. It's going to be, about kind of the context of leading a military during that segregation period, which he was able to be successful at. So definitely come for that to see Larry. I think it'd be a great event. I know it's gonna be a great event. So I know that there's a lot of people out there that's going to Wreath Across America and they're doing their thing. I get it. So this is just start. We'll have one again next year as well, because then, because we didn't know about this. But if you are in the neighborhood, please stop in one of the two places. And from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, we'll be at the DAV 83. It's 115 Clay Avenue, Brandon. And then from 11 to 11:30, we'll be at the Memorial Cemetery Park, where we'll actually reunify the wreaths of the veterans who, there's World War I, Civil War, World War I, World War II, and Korean War, 4 wreath stands, and we'll put them next to the memorial for the Negro veterans. So that's at 11:30 at the Central. So you can at least make one of them and let them know, let everybody know that, that you honor these veterans as well, and we haven't forgotten about them as well. Wow, that's a lot. I know it's noon, everybody's had lunch stuff, but I just wanted to give you some insight. It'll also play this again at night, but I think it's so important that we understand that again, back in those days, those guys led the way. The guys and women led the way. The 688 Central Postal Directory, they all led the way. We didn't understand what they were going through, and then when they died kind of anonymously. Not unlike today, where today, hey, you're a veteran, you're gonna let everybody know you got your hat right here. Back then, you didn't have your hat. So again, and then if you can't make it, there will also be a Zoom. I'll put the Zoom in the chat box. So if you can't be here, watch it on Zoom. Everybody should be doing this. Not just, I know we're just starting this, but Veterans Council Veterans and sponsoring the Gamma Eta Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma chapter. I'm the Military Affairs Chair, which is one of the reasons why you see this confusion, this shirt here. But there's no reason why anyone else can do it as well. So see you then. I'm winning. But I got to end with this because you know why? This is the first by the Gamma Eta Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and our sisters, the Zetas. We're the one to start this. Then you can start after that. And I must leave you with our Sigma chain.
The founders of our wondrous band, in numbers though were 3, taught idols high, which soon became a part of every fee. Said they, our cause let us make known. Oh, brothers, don't dismay. Fear not, fight on, for in this wise our cause speeds on its way. Fear not, fight on, for in this wise our cause speeds on its way. From western plains to eastern hills, there comes a shout of praise.
Once again, I know as my fraternity, Blue Phi, go, but this is for everybody, not just that, the Deltas, Omegas, Alphas, Kappas, the whole, not just them, but anybody really. If you are a veteran, you love your veteran, like you say you love your veteran, then this is for everyone. So hopefully I see you guys there. If not physically at the in person, on the Zoom. Until then, this is Tony Williams from Veterans Council and Veteran, and also Gamma Eta Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. I'm the Military Affairs Chair. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow. Intro.